Hi guys, it's your boy Six. Now today I'm going to have an Android Studio tutorial. Today I'm going to show you guys how to make a phone call programmatically using Android Studio. Alright, so we are here in our new Android Studio project. So now the first thing we're actually going to do is we're going to name this thing call application. Nice. So call application has been named, the package name, everything has been set. We're going to go to next. We're going to set the minimum SDK at Android 4.4 KitKat. Now we're going to hit next. We just want to choose an empty activity, nothing fancy for now. Main activity. We're going to finish. Now my Android Studio is actually building on my left screen, and I'm actually showing you guys things on my right screen, so just give me a second to pull that up and drag it over. They're all ready. So now the thing that we're going to do in this Android Studio project is we want to click a button and it will call a certain number. So the first thing we're going to do is going to go to our main activity.xml, and we're going to go to the design aspect of this. So the first thing we want to do is change this constraint layout to a relative layout, just because it's my favorite type of layout in Android Studio. So we have a relative layout. Bring this down here. It's just how I like to separate and organize things. Okay, so get rid of this hello world. Instead, we're going to drag in a text view, and that text view is just going to say call now. So the ID is text view. We can leave that as that. That's fine. The text, we're going to change that to call now. Perfect. Okay, so now that we have that set, we want to bring in a button. We can either bring in a button or a floating action button, but for this demonstration, you know what, we might as well actually just bring in a floating action button. So let's look for that one down here. If I can find it, there we go. And right down here, we're just going to drop a floating action button. You can make this look like anything. I'm just going to type in call and make it look like a cell phone is inside the floating action button. Import that library called design. Give it a second. Okay, so we have a floating action button here that's still building. Give that 1 second. Okay, now here's our floating action button. So we have two warnings here. Let's see if they are important or can be ignored. So the hard-coded text warning, that's pretty easy. Just extract the string resource. That should be taken care of. It says keyboard accessible widget. We can leave that one alone for now. Alright. So now we are ready to start building. So the floating action button, we're just going to call that one fab. Short for floating action button. Hit enter. That's what it's named as. So what we want to do now is go into our main activity.java, and we're going to declare a floating action button, which is down here. So floating action button fab. Or actually, let's call that one call. Floating action button call. Fine, that's it. That has been set. Now we're going to come into under set content view inside our main, and we're going to say call equals floating action button find view by ID. Then we're going to say r.id dot fab. So our floating action button has been set. So what this does is it tells Java, or Android in this case, that the floating action button is going to connect to this variable called call. So that's fine, that's good. Now we want to set something called an Onclicklistener for this floating action button. So basically what an Onclicklistener does is it tells the Android, okay, when this button is clicked, I want you to do X action. So we're going to do call dot set Onclicklistener new view dot Onclicklistener, and it will generate the rest of the method for you automatically. So that's great. So the thing that we want to do first though is that we actually want to ask for permission for a phone call way ahead of time so we don't have to worry. So you're going to come up here to your manifest. We're going to open up this manifest now. Alright, so now that this manifest is open, under the package, which is right here, just going to give it some spaces, and we're going to do users permission, and we want to look for Android permission call phone. Close that. So now what we've actually done is ask the phone for permission. Hey, can I make a phone call? And the manifest is just there to say, okay, they wanted to ask me this ahead of time. So now we're going to come back to our main activity.java. So to begin this phone call intent, or whatever you want to call it, so we're going to begin by saying final int. I'm going to call it request underscore phone underscore call, and we're going to make that integer equal the number 1. Now under it, we're going to create an intent, and the intent here is going to be called intent call intent equals new intent action dot call. So we're going to say equals new intent action, let me see, TION dot call. I'm going to close that off now. So what we're going to do is hit Alt Enter. Actually, that is very wrong. Sorry about that. Alt Enter for our intent. Make sure our intent is completely okay. Now we're going to do intent dot action call. There we go. Sorry about that little mishap, and let's continue. So we're going to do call intent, which we've just set right above this, dot set data. It's going to ask for a URI, so we're going to do URI dot parse, and now we're going to have parentheses with a string for our phone number. So it's very, very important that when you type in this phone number, you include the letters TEL. First of all, let's bring in our URI, Alt Enter, quick fix. Now inside here, we're going to type in TEL colon, then we're going to write our number. I'm not going to give you guys any personal numbers, so today we're just going to do 000 000 0000. Or better yet, we can do 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 0. That's our telephone number that we're going to be calling for this example. So now, before we continue any further, we're actually going to put a comment above this to let you guys know in the future what this code actually did. So this is just going to say when the call button is pressed. So the code right under this basically says what happens when the call button is pressed. Now we're going to make a comment right before this next section to let you know what this next piece of code will be doing. So this next piece of code we're going to type is actually going to say checks for permission before placing the call. So we're going to put checks for permission before placing the call. So this next code will check for permission before placing the call. Now, it's very important in Android that you check for permission because the phone will not allow your action to go through. Therefore, you actually must ask the user with a dialog box that pops up saying, can I have permission to use the phone on this device, or can I have permission to send text messages from this device? So what we're going to do is start a simple if statement. If, parentheses, obviously, android.os.build version. So we're going to do android.os.build. Typed in OD by accident. Android.os.build.version with all caps. Then we're going to do .sdk_in. Not really sure why that did that, but we're going to fix that now. Alright, so we're going to continue. So SDK int is greater than or equal to. So now this piece of code may seem a little bit intimidating or might be even complicated for some viewers, but I assure you all this does is check for permission. So build.version underscore codes. So version codes is what we're going to type in there. Dot capital M. So what this is going to do is basically create a whole nother if statement. And we're going to put curly braces around that. So inside this if statement that we've just created, we're going to do another if statement. Yes, it takes this long to check for permissions, but it's all worth it in the end to send this phone call. It's all about security with Android. So ifs cannot be capital. So if, we're going to type in context compat dot check self permission and we're going to do main activity. So whatever activity you're in is where you're going to be choosing. So we're going to do main activity dot this because we only have one main activity. And we're going to do comma manifest permission manifest.permission dot call phone because it's what we asked for. So this is basically just looking into the manifest to say, hey, did they ask you to call the phone? Did they ask you to use that phone permission? If so, we're going to continue along processing this code. So now we're going to say if it's not equal to package manager dot permission granted. So we're going to type that now. If not equal to dot permission granted, then we're going to do, yes, you guessed it, yet another set of curly braces for this. So down here we're going to type in activity compat dot request permissions. So activity compat dot request permissions. So now we're going to say main activity dot this because it's our main activity, comma new string manifest permission call phone. So we're going to say new string, and it's actually a string array. Some curly braces here, and we're actually going to type in manifest dot permission dot call underscore phone. Now, after those curly braces, we're actually going to put a comma spaced. We're going to say request phone call. And yet again, we are still not done. Sorry about that. So after that, now we're actually going to put the else of the if statement, which will be under here. So we're going to type in else. I have no idea why I keep typing capitals. So we're going to do else along with our curly braces, and we're going to say, first of all, we're going to put a comment in here saying what this next section of code is going to do. And what that section of code is going to do is say places the call. So what this basically does, what we've run through so far is that, all right, when this button is pressed, it's going to make a call intent call intent. And it's going to ask call intent, say, okay, I'm going to set your data URI parse this number. It's going to call this number that's in this green string right here. Now, before it sends that number, it's going to say, okay, manifest. Did they tell you that we're going to request a phone call? So it's going to look through the manifest and say, okay, well, they did say they can do a phone call. So if it's not wrong, so if the person is not wrong, I want you to do what we're going to do now, which is place the call. So placing the call is just one simple line of code. It's just going to say start activity call intent. So we're going to do that now. Start activity, and all we're going to do is type in call intent. That is pretty much it. So now this will place a phone call. I challenge you guys to actually make a text view in that main activity.xml file to type in whichever number you guys want and hit the call button, and it will call that number. I hope you guys can use this in any and a lot of your projects. And if you like this content, hit the notification, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Thanks for watching Code 6. If you want more code tutorials, I want you to actually check out my JavaFX web browser 2017.